welcome to the launching of the PPA by the Ministry of National Mobilization, Social Development and Youth. This morning, before we go further into our program, we're going to ask Ms. Jacinta Payne to come and open us in a word of prayer. Will we all stand, please?
Let us pray. Most gracious and heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for health. We thank you for strength. Even now, as we begin this important PPA training and conversation to address the issues of poverty and surrounding poverty, we ask that you would guide and you would direct. Even now, we pray for the organizers, the facilitators, and the participants. We pray even now that everything that would be done here would be done in accordance to your will. And at the end of the day, our very beautiful nation would be in a better place. Thank you even now, and have your way. In your name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Thank you very much. You may be seated. Honorable Frederick Stevenson, Minister of Social Development, National Mobilization, the Gender, the Family, Persons with Disabilities, Cooperatives, Community, and Youth. Mrs. Narissa Gittins Macmillan, Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of National Mobilization. Ms. Marissa Book, Director, Social Services. Ms. Ammonia Paul Roll, Social and Gender Analyst at ECPA. Trainees, the media, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good morning. The Ministry of National Mobilization has as its responsibility of being the social implementing program department for the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and acts as the social hub and response agency for the vulnerable within the society. The ministry, therefore, is expected to train a team of individuals who would be responsible for the administering of the instruments to garner the views of community experts, heads of households, to assist the ministry in better being prepared to advocate on the behalf of the communities. Communities have already been selected to participate in this process, and this is done by evidence-based research, and we are hoping that all of the conditions surrounding the issue of poverty in those communities can be addressed through the process of the Participatory Poverty Assessment, shortly known as the PPA. To bring us some welcome remarks this morning, we have the Director of Social Service Department within the Ministry of National Mobilization, Ms. Marissa Burke.
Honorable Minister Frederick Stevenson, Minister of National Mobilization, etc., Ms. Ammonia Paul Rowe, which is the Gender Social Analyst at the OECS Commission, our Chairperson, Mr. Philcol Jeffers, and in the audience, we'd like to acknowledge our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Narissa Gittins Macmillan, the members of the National Assessment Team that has responsibility for providing decision-making processes for and on behalf of the Country Poverty Assessment, of which we are a part of. We also would have had as well our subcommittee for the purpose of developing the Participatory Poverty Assessment, and some of the members are here as well. Our participants who will be participating in this experience, and also the media, good morning. A special good morning is also conveyed to our CPA administrator, Ms. Listra Kolzak, who has also spearheaded this entire exercise with our ministry as a partnership. So this morning, On behalf of our permanent secretary and the staff of the ministry, we want to be able to welcome you this morning to this particular very intensive workshop. This workshop is hopefully geared at identifying the action research toolkit that will be used to collect qualitative data in selected communities across the country. This was done in 2007-2008 when this country would have launched the country poverty assessment during that time. And we are here again to be able to not just update the poverty report, but now we can be able to use it to inform a lot of policy decision-making measures. Earlier in this year, a lot of field work would have been done through enumerators attached to the statistical office, and they were responsible for doing the survey of living conditions in terms of the quantitative data that was collected in the field. So at this time around, you would have heard SLC as an abbreviation, which is Survey of Living Conditions. Now you will be hearing PPA, which is the second part of this process for the purpose of the CPA, which is a country poverty assessment. So we have a team of people who some would have been exposed to it before, and then you have some who are now being introduced to it for the first time. The hope is that we will be able to use the selected communities that was collected by the Stats Office, and that we would be able to use a myriad of areas and tools that look in depth into the lives of people at the community level. So we thank you for your participation today in advance, and we hope that not just the training over the next week, and also we have the field pilot to replicate in the field the first 2 days of next week, which will then take us into a rigid schedule from October 1st to November 30th, where we will be able to engage 8 communities in country. So we thank you in advance, and we trust that you have a great time and have fun while doing a lot of work. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ms. Book. At this time, I want to welcome our social and gender analyst from the CPA, Ms. Ammonia Paul Rowe, to bring some brief remarks on behalf of the OECS process.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable Minister, Frederick Stevenson, Mrs. Marissa Burke, Ms. Listra Kozak, CPA Coordinator, invited guests, facilitators, the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I bring you greetings from the OECS Commission, particularly the staff of the Enhanced Country Poverty Assessment Project at the OECS. We are very pleased to be associated with this activity, and as you may be aware, and Marissa mentioned earlier, the Enhanced Country Poverty Assessment Project or program is funded by the Caribbean Development Bank, and we are implementing through the OECS Commission, which is the Enhanced Country Poverty Assessment Project. Now, for governments to develop strong policy or programs, that requires empirical evidence. And as Marissa also mentioned earlier, the last country poverty assessment for St. Vincent was done in 2007. So you could imagine that this data is very dated. It's not current, so you cannot make any decisions on that particular set of data. And so that is why we are here today. We want to ensure that the research facilitators who have been selected are adequately trained to collect the required data. The overall objective of the country poverty assessment is to improve the availability of timely and reliable data, which is critical to support evidence-based decision-making and also to improve the framework and the overall capacity for monitoring poverty at the national level. The PPA is one component, the Participatory Poverty Assessment. We have to get accustomed to the terms, right? So the PPA is one component of the country poverty assessment. And these were developed in the 1990s with the aim of increasing the participation of poor people in the process of formulating and implementing policy for poverty alleviation. There are some general objectives to the PPA, and among them will be to report on the perceptions, the experiences, the priorities of people living in poor communities, to ensure that we understand the differences or the differential impacts of poverty and vulnerability among our population. And we will do several other things in the Participatory Poverty Assessment. And as I said to you, it complements it's one of the components of the Country Poverty Assessment. There are 5 components of that CPA, and it's just one of the components. Marisa spoke earlier about the Survey of Living Conditions. We have the Macro Socioeconomic Assessment. We have an institutional assessment. We have a poverty vulnerability mapping. So there are 5 components to the CPA, and the PPA is just one of these components. And so it therefore complements the SLC in that the Survey of Living Conditions collects quantitative data. It tells us the percentages of who's poor and so on. But when we do the PPA, we go deeper and we understand why some people are experiencing poverty, how they are experiencing poverty, how they are coping, and what strategies they are using to survive. And so it is a deliberate action to give a voice to persons living in poverty or vulnerable conditions, and to those whose living conditions are restricted by structural conditions in the society, changes in policy environment, or natural disasters. So the PPA is a very important component of the CPA. And today we'll be here for a week, ensuring that we've trained the facilitators who will go out and do a very important task of collecting all of that information. I want to wish, well, I am hoping for a very interactive and successful workshop. I look forward to it. We are excited about the fact that St. Vincent is now doing its country poverty assessment and that you are well on your data, fresh data. And so we wish you well, and we look forward to a productive week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Paul Roll. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, to do the feature address at this opening, we now invite Honorable Frederick Stevenson, the Minister with responsibility for the Ministry of National Mobilization, to address us. Honorable Minister.
Getting a gun salute. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Mrs. Paul Roll, of the Social and Gender Analyst of the ECPA of the OECS. I see my good friend Tony Regisford there. I recognize Ms. Robin, my permanent secretary, and other members of staff of the Ministry of National Mobilization, staff from the Statistical Office, the members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, a very pleasant good morning. The time has come once again for us here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to assess the levels of poverty that is experienced by our people. Understanding the intensity and dimensions are critical to policymaking and problem-solving process to transforming people's lives. It is, however, reliant on active participation by the respondents used at every phase of the process, and as such, we beckon your very active participation. As you just heard, our last poverty assessment report was done in 2007, 2008. We are quite aware that enumerators have been actively engaging individuals at the community level to identify their household level socio-economic context. However, the Ministry of National Mobilization is charged with the ministerial portfolio of social and community development. It has responsibility for this poverty assessment exercise to work with selected communities in developing their socio-economic profile and challenges, as well as opportunities at the community level, and analyzing this information to determine the intensity and dimensions of poverty in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. What we're using is an action research methodology identified as the participatory poverty assessment module of the Country Poverty Assessment Exercise 2018. What is this participatory poverty assessment, otherwise referred to as a PPA? The purpose of the PPA is to better understand poverty through a variety of methods. A combination of group discussions, community workshops, and one-on-one formal or informal interviews will be conducted by trained facilitators in 8 selected communities across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The PPA is part of the Country Poverty Assessment, which will provide a complete picture of the living conditions of poverty in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The Country Poverty Assessment has already begun, and here is a comprehensive study of poverty conducted at a national level for the following purposes. 1. Analysis. Determining the characteristics, extent, geographic concentration, severity, and causes of poverty, and how it impacts different demographics within the state. 2. Policy making. Designing targeted interventions that benefit the poor and vulnerable. And 3. Monitoring and evaluation. Assessing the effectiveness of existing programs and policies aimed at reducing poverty. CPAs apply a mixture of both quantitative and qualitative methods. Previously, only quantitative methods were employed to assess the state of poverty. However, recognition was given to the fact that poverty is multidimensional in scope, and that applying a qualitative analysis will give a better and greater understanding. This CPA is funded by the Caribbean Development Bank, which provides the establishment of a national assessment team, which directs the overall process. The National Assessment Team, otherwise to be referred to as the NAT, is a multi-sectoral cabinet-approved committee, a combination of public, private, and community-based non-governmental organizations representatives. It is mandated to advise and coordinate the implementation of various aspects of the CPA. The NET is further subdivided into communities with responsibilities for the different components of the CPA. The Country Poverty Assessment has 5 components, which are as follows. 1, the Survey of Living Conditions, or the Household Budget Survey. The Participatory Poverty Assessment, Institutional Analysis, and Macro Socioeconomic Analysis, Poverty Vulnerability Mapping. The PPA is the main qualitative focus of the poverty from the perspective of specific groups and poor or vulnerable persons. The assessment involves the use of participatory research techniques to collect and analyze information on well-being and coping strategies in marginalized groups and communities. The findings of the PPA largely supplement and validate the quantitative analysis provided by the SLC and the HBS, the Survey of Living Conditions and the Household Budget Survey. You may ask, why the participatory You may ask, why the PPA? Sorry. The more people participate in the PPA, the better it will be for the portrait of poverty and living conditions of all Vincentians. Your participation ensures that every person is represented in the study results, and which includes those who are married, single parents, unemployed, young adults, elderly, persons with disabilities, etc. Your participation is very necessary for the success of this program. When and where the PPA discussions will take place. Discussions will be held from the 1st of October 2018 to the 30th of November in 8 selected communities across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. At the end of this week's activity, the communities will be named. It is noteworthy that some communities may be assessed for both the PPA and the Survey of Living Conditions, as these communities are randomly selected. Public announcements and transect walks will be done before the beginning of the discussions. I urge all to stay informed. The training of the field staff comprises of the following: community mapping, institutional mapping, quality of life matrix, and vulnerability mapping. There are to be 4 teams, which will each comprise a field facilitator, an assistant field facilitator, and a rapporteur, and there will be an overall lead facilitator. The field activities would comprise a transect walk, community leaders interview with frontline officers, and community workshops. What will be the use of the results of this interview process? The PPA will provide insights into the causes of poverty, deprivation, and coping strategies in poor communities. The results, combined with other findings of the CPA, will be used to 1. Determine the causes and extent of poverty, formulate and implement national policies and poverty reduction strategies and action programs that addresses the conditions of the poor, provide information to guide the designs of projects and the provision of services that target poor and vulnerable groups, guide the macroeconomic policies such as tax policies and subsidies, influence the decisions regarding income support, labor market, housing and infrastructure, education, and healthcare. Inform local, regional, and international interventions. Report and track progress with respect to the Sustainable Development Goals, targets, and indicators. Since 2014, my ministry, the Ministry of National Mobilization, has embarked on a process of reform to strengthen the social safety networks in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The emphasis continues to be strengthening the system's performance, which includes the need to modernize service delivery, improve objectivity of targeting, reduce duplication of benefits, improve monitoring and evaluation, and establishing a policy foundation for the social protection systems nationally. The results of the PPA, when completed, would greatly propel this process, which would mean getting the best buck for our money, facilitating efficiencies in the context of significant resource constraints, thus putting my ministry in a better position to serve the public more equitably. The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines continue to do all in its power to cater to the needs of all our people, especially the poor, the underprivileged, and other vulnerable groups in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thus, we see this activity as not just another governmental activity, but as a responsibility and a commitment. I wish for a very successful week of training and wish that the targeted communities will fully participate. I want to urge the persons who will carry out the survey to work diligently so that we can have the necessary data needed for the improvement of living conditions of all our people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thank you very much and have a successful week.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Just wanted to highlight, he made mention of NAT. So for those of you who don't know what NAT means, it's the National Advisory Team that advises on all platform of the CPA. Also, I just want to highlight at this point, part of the ministry's team that has responsibility for ensuring that we are in the public domain, and that's a team from ITST. Guys, could you just stand so that everyone sees who you are? They're responsible for having the ministry's Gov page updated and constantly informed about the process that is there, and they've been doing an excellent job thus far. Persons who are wishing to see what is happening with what is going on in the ministry can visit our government page. It's www.gov.vc, Ministry of National Mobilization, and you'll find videos and data documentaries there regarding what we have been doing thus far. And I think we have done a good job thus far within the limited time that we are able to have our new page up. So once again, a hand for them, please. I also wanted to make one correction. Ms. Burke's portfolio is not social services, but rather social development. So just for clarity for the media who is here. At this time, we invite Ms. Listra Kolzak, the CPA administrator here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to do the vote of thanks for us. Ms. Kolzak.
Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you again for being here. Today, I'd like to say thank you very much to the Honorable Frederick Stevenson, Ministry of National Mobilization, etc., for presenting feature remarks to us here. And I particularly like to emphasize the fact that he kept stressing on the need for participation. The information that we wish to collect on poverty cannot be collected unless persons participate and give accurate information. In order to make the necessary decisions for poverty, in order to address poverty nationally, we have to be able to have this accurate data that tells us where poverty is located, what are the issues that are affecting poverty, and what are the issues that need to be addressed in our communities. So again, I'd like to emphasize the need for participation of all persons who would be part or selected to be part of the process, and for them to give as accurate as much information as possible. I'd also like to thank the PS, Ms. Nerissa Gittins Macmillan, for being with us. Thank you, PS. And Ms. Ammonia Paul-Roll for emphasizing the need for accurate data, not only accurate but current data. We cannot plan for today using information from 10 years ago. So we need to have current data in order to make appropriate decisions. So again, thank you, Ms. Ammonia Paul-Roll. Thanks is extended also to the National Assessment Team. This is a team that has been planning and preparing all of the activities and making the major decisions concerning the Country Poverty Assessment Project. Most of us are here amongst you, and I'd like to say thanks to you and to representatives from the various ministries who would also be here, either representing persons who are unable to attend on the NAT or general persons who are involved in the participatory poverty process. The subcommittees of the NAT, and especially the Participatory Poverty Assessment Subcommittee, they will be involved in the workshop for the majority of the week. So the NAT will be here for us for the first day, but the Participatory Poverty Assessment Team will be here for most of the workshop week. So we thank you again for being here. Members of the Statistical Office and the media and ITSD. And finally, we'd like to thank the funding agency, the Caribbean Development Bank, which is providing funding through the OECS. Again, generally, I'd like to say thank you to all, and I wish you all a very successful week coming up. And I know we have some field activities the week following. I wish you success in that also. And again, we beg the persons out in the communities to participate. It's for all of us, it's for you, it's for me, and it's for all of us. So participate, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kozak. I always do this at these functions. I forget to mention who I am, assuming that everyone would remember who I am. I'm Philcal Jeffers, Communications and Marketing Officer for the Ministry of National Mobilization. Just want to let you know, while we have the media here, that we have completed our brochures so that persons can have information when our field staff goes out to visit and engage. They will be able to have their documentaries so that they can see. And also, the training team, I've been advised by Minister to do this part. They would have their full equipment. There's their bags. Missing from it is our logo at this point. But that would happen, no worries. It's more important to have the training than to worry about the logo right now. The information is more important, right? Right? Good. And there are stationaries, but I want to focus on, as a ministry, we have been able, with the assistance from Listra and our team, to work with our team, and I want to recognize members of our team as well. Hannah, Kevron, Shamika, yeah, and also Chika. And missing from here now is Shani Brown, who is actually at the office working on another part of it, and also Samantha, right? And today happens to be Samantha's birthday, so it's a good time to say thank you. As a ministry, we've been able to compile this manual so that the persons who are being trained today would have a full documentary with what is being used and the assessment tools, so they don't need to worry about many other things. And also I want to thank the advice of Mr. Roger Young, who has always been there to ensure that this team of young people, and I want to emphasize it's a team of young people that is leading this process for the ministry. And Mr. Young, being, as his name says, young, helps us to stay focused and coordinated in our approach to how we put out the information for the ministry. So thank you very much, Mr. Young. And all of this is under the supervision of 2 females, and she will tell me no, but I have to say it, Ms. Book, but more so Permanent Secretary Nerissa Giddens Macmillan. Could we stand and let me see you? Thank you. Thanks to our hard work and dedication, we're able to pull off all of these things as a ministry, and we look forward to having the results and coming back to you to share with you. So, here ends the formal part of the opening ceremony. I also want to let you know that we also have a representative from the Grenadines, so the Grenadines is not left out. We have Ms. Gemma Adams, and Jeremiah Jones, who represent Union Island and the Southern Grenadines as community and social partners for the ministry. So the Grenadines is not left out of what we are doing. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you again, ITST, NBC Radio, WFM, and I also understand the newspaper would collect the information from us so that we can share, so that everybody is aware of what is happening here with the ministry. So thank you once again.